Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old dirt road. Are you ready to go? Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today on Live Music Nation Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gill. Today we're with Philip Boehm from Upstream Theater. How are you, Philip?
I'm okay. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
Okay is a good place to be. It's better than not great. It's better than, but not quite good as I'm great. It's a Tuesday. So give us a little background on you, Philip. Where'd you grow up? And then talk about your professional career, where it started and where you're at now.
Well, I grew up in Houston, Texas, which is actually where I'm talking to you from right now. But my professional career really began in Poland many years ago. This was still in the communist days, and I was at the State Academy of Theater in Warsaw. And I lived in Poland for a number of years and began.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of wine and an old dirt road. Are you ready to go?
Back to the U.S. and eventually moved to St. Louis, where in 2005 I founded Upstream Theater, and that theater has been producing mostly U.S. premieres ever since.
Wow.
Often of works in translation. Some of it is new work, some of it is original work. We just did an original play. In fact, that's playing right now. If you want to come and see it.
Very good, very good. So that concept? I mean, did you just bring that home with you from Poland?
Well, no, Poland is they had state sponsors and still have state-sponsored theaters. So the smallest theater I worked in Poland had an acting staff that was paid on salary, monthly basis of at least 40-something people, which is almost unheard of here. Yeah, that was the smallest. And then here it was just trying to figure out what. There are a lot of regional theaters that are not so regional here. They're hiring out of New York. They're doing the same play. They're not necessarily representative of the region. And for local actors, and especially women, it's very difficult to get hired. If you're an equity actor in St. Louis, it's not easy to get hired by the local regional LORT theater. So we hire locally, and we've been an equity company since the beginning. So that's also important because that means all the actors get paid a standard wage and they qualify for health benefits. That kind of.
Well, my first question in hearing all that is, where are you getting your funding from?
Well, that is always an issue. Mostly grants. We don't have any angels, and unfortunately we don't have the kind of connections that some companies do, nor do we have institutional backing. So it's largely through grant writing.
Are these private grants or these public grants? How are they?
Lately, it's more public grants. In the past, we have had some private foundational grants, but mostly it's. But this recent play, we were fortunate to have received our third NEA grant, which is a big deal for a small theater like us.
Sure. No, absolutely. All right, give us some idea of the productions that you host here lately.
Well, the one that's showing right now is called The Good Ship St. Louis, and it takes as a starting point the 1939 voyage of the German ship St. Louis that was carrying over 900 Jewish refugees to Cuba. They expected to disembark in Cuba and eventually wind up in the United States. When they got to Cuba, they were turned away. The U.S. also failed to admit them. They were turned away from the U.S. and from Canada. The captain of that ship was a good German. He refused to take them back to Nazi Germany. They wound up disembarking in Antwerp, and they were taken in by Belgium, Holland, France, and England. And of the ones who wound up in England, they survived. The others were caught up in the tides of war and occupation, and about half of those who stayed on the continent perished in the camps. So we're taking that story as a springboard for a deeper exploration or a wider exploration of refugee and the right to asylum in the present day.
Wow. So some serious deep topics.
Yeah, we generally have pretty serious topics.
Okay.
This is a play with music, and we have St. Louis in the 1990s, as these wars were happening in the former Yugoslavia. St. Louis became the host city for thousands of Bosnian refugees, and it had at one point the largest population of Bosnians outside of Europe.
Fantastic. Very cool. How many productions a year do you guys do?
Pre-pandemic, we did usually 3 productions a year. Since the pandemic, we're still emerging and trying to find that. Even this production, we had to postpone the opening because there was someone tested positive for COVID, and then the equity rules go into place. And so.
Gotcha. Do you host other events at the theater?
We don't. We're just a company, and we rent the venues. We generally perform in the area of St. Louis known as Grand Center.
Okay.
And that's so we perform in various venues there, but we don't ourselves host other companies.
What's your main venue?
Lately, it's the Marcel Theater of the Kranzberg Arts Foundation, and the Kranzberg Arts Foundation has several venues, and they also host various organizations. We're the oldest resident company within their ecosystem. And there was another space that they opened, their first space they opened in 2008 in that area. And it's a small black box, and we sometimes perform there as well.
Oh, very good. All right, let's have some fun questions here. If I ask you, what's the all-time best production you've ever seen in your life, what would you say?
I would be flummoxed if you asked me such a question. I can tell you a few of the ones that really stuck with me. There were Andrzej Wajda, a famous film director from Poland, did a production, an adaptation of Crime and Punishment in Kraków, and that sticks with me a lot. That was a very impressive production.
Okay.
Just the way that it was acted, so that would be up there, one of the ones up there.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, if you could act in one Broadway show, what would it be?
Well, I am not an actor, so
okay. But if you could, though.
If I could act in a Broadway show, what would it be? Wow. It would probably be one from the 50s, something like a Death of a Salesman.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. Philip, how do people find out more about Upstream Theater?
They can go to upstreamtheater.org, and we spell it ER, theater with an ER. And that's one way to find out more, and you get on our mailing list. And if you're in St. Louis, we encourage you to come see our show.
Yeah, fantastic. Philip, what a life you have led. That's amazing. Thanks for being on with us today.
Well, thank you for hosting this. And I hope that you have a lot of listeners and people downloading your podcast as well.
Absolutely. Have a good day. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle